Good evening. Happy Sunday to you. Got a lot to do tonight. Unfortunately, we were not able to join you yesterday because of our Michigan State broadcast. Unfortunately, Michigan State couldn't pull it off. They lose to Purdue 40-29. And you know, we'll talk about this a little bit as we get on through the show. But I told you last week, I felt very strongly with where Michigan State was going to land in the first college football rankings. In the first college football playoff rankings, those were Tuesday. We'll get another set Tuesday as well. And the thing is, I felt very strongly about Michigan State being at number 3 last week, and that's where they ended up. I got the whole top 4 right, but it's not, this isn't rocket science, here. So I think it's interesting now, like, you see where Michigan would end up in the college football playoff last week at 7. That makes sense. Here it's a little different, right? Like, Michigan goes on the road, loses to Michigan State. Top 10 matchup. At one point, you're up by 16. You blow a 16-point lead midway through the third quarter. And it's not out of the realm of possibility that Michigan's able to hang around because they lose to a good football team in Michigan State. The problem is with Michigan State is losing to an unranked Purdue team after you're, coming off of a really high beating a top 10 team at home. It muddies the waters a little bit. And look, there's no doubt Michigan State controls their destiny. We'll talk about that. But it was an ugly loss for the Spartans yesterday, unfortunately. And for their hopes in terms of staying in the mix here, staying in the mix for the playoffs, staying in the mix here in the Big Ten East, they do control their own path. But it is more difficult now with a win or with a notch in the loss column. So we'll talk about that. Also, Cincinnati stays unbeaten. We'll talk about the crazy set of circumstances that they had to go through to remain undefeated. It was something I've never really seen before. But we'll talk about that too. We're also going to, we got a lot to do NFL-wise. Lions are idle this week. They're on the bye. Insert Lions can't lose this week here. And it's a little too on the nose for me, but I figure you got to do it. And we're going to get you caught up on what else is going on in the NFL. But certainly, this Michigan State game yesterday, troublesome for the Spartans. So we'll talk about that coming up in just a couple of minutes with you. Good to have you with us this evening. While the pasta sauce is on the pot simmering. I know you guys are getting ready for dinner, so I appreciate you hanging around with us. Also, the top 25 AP polls have been released. We'll talk about that as well. Those mean less at this point in the year, certainly, as you're really looking at, the CFP rankings. Those are what really matter, and especially for teams like Michigan State, for Michigan, who they are certainly in the mix. Those are the rankings you want to look at. So we'll talk about that as well. Good to have you with us. We'll get going here in just a second. So stay with us.
Fox 9 Minneapolis reporter Mary McGuire. Social media turned out to be a lifesaver in one instance for a North Carolina girl. Fox's Sue Guzman explains.
A missing girl is safe today after she used a viral hand signal popularized on TikTok to warn a motorist she was in distress. Police say the unidentified 16-year-old girl from Asheville had been abducted by an older man when she used the hand signal at a traffic stop on Interstate 75 in southern Kentucky Thursday afternoon. The motion, which is a closed fist with the thumb tucked in, was recognized by the motorist behind them as "I need help," who then called 911 and alerted police. They then arrested 61-year-old James Herbert Brick of Cherokee, North Carolina, charged him with first-degree unlawful imprisonment and possession of matter showing sex performances by a minor. Sue Guzman, Fox News.
German police say a 57-year-old man stabbed a 10-year-old boy with a kitchen knife in a department store in Munich last night. The boy suffered injuries to his neck and shoulder that are severe but not life-threatening. I'm Joe Chio, Fox News.
WJR Traffic and Weather First.
Good news on 75. It's reopened in both directions, specifically northbound between 8 Mile and 14 Mile Road. Then the southbound side reopened between Square Lake Road and 8 Mile Road. The earlier construction that was scheduled to last until tomorrow morning has cleared ahead of schedule. Also westbound on the Jeffries Freeway at Warren Avenue. The accident there that had 2 right lanes closed and was blocking the exit ramp has cleared. Those 2 right lanes are open. The exit ramp has reopened, and traffic is moving freely through the area. I'm Will Hatzel, WJR Traffic and Weather First.
Temperatures will run about 10 degrees above average, wrapping up this afternoon with a high of 62 under a clear sky. Overnight clear with a low of 40. Sunny early tomorrow, but a few clouds are moving late in the day with a high of 64. From the Weather Channel, I'm meteorologist Jeff Marr on News Talk 760 WJR.
From the Golden Tower of the Fisher Building, you're hearing the great voice of the Great Lakes. News Talk 760 WJR. It's time for Sports Wrap on 760 WJR.
All right, this is the wrap on 760 WJR.
To a car phone we go. Dave, thanks for hanging on. You're on 760.
Gentlemen, and Steve and Dan, you got the chemistry. It's cooking.
Presented by FanDuel. Download the FanDuel Sports app today. FanDuel, more ways to win.
Are you calling us from your office?
I'm doing SportsCenter tonight with
Are you really?
Dan Patrick.
Well, I'm very impressed. By the way, give Dan our best. He's a good man. And
I will. Hey, Dan, Chuck Swirsky says hi. This is the best sports wrap has ever been, in my opinion.
Now, here's your host, Chris Renwick.
That is not what the doctor ordered. That is not the encore that Spartan fans wanted. That was a tough one yesterday. It's a tough one because, coming off that high of Michigan, coming off that game where, look, there were times when the Spartans didn't look very good. There were times when Michigan was having their way. There were times when it just looked real bleak at Spartan Stadium in East Lansing last week. Down 16 midway through the third quarter. It's a tough spot to be in. But the Spartans found a way. They found a way. Come back. Claw. As Mel Tucker says, they kept chopping. And that was a big-time win. And you're thinking, geez, I told you last week, look, Kenneth Walker's the guy. He's the guy. He's the guy. He is the best running back in college football. I don't care what anybody else tells you. And even yesterday, Kenneth Walker still ran for 146 yards and a touchdown. I mean, look, he's the real deal. But that's beside the point, because unfortunately, even after 146 yards and a score from Kenneth Walker, Spartans still couldn't get it done. They got blasted 40-29 against the Boilermakers. And look, the part here that really stinks is Michigan State, coming down the stretch here. And look, it's the same thing for Michigan, but coming down the stretch, this is the meat of the schedule. This is the teeth of it. When you still got Penn State on the table, you still got Ohio State coming up. And look, I've been telling you this all year. Michigan State secondary is shaky. Michigan State secondary is not the no-fly zone of Mark D'Antonio's Your. This is not the same group. They don't have the same mentality. They're just not there yet. And yesterday they got exposed. Gave up 536 yards through the air. Aiden O'Connell completed 75% of his passes, going 40 for 54. That was the game plan. Throw the football. Throw the football, and then when you have another opportunity, throw the football. And absolutely just carved up the Spartan secondary. And again, coming off last week, I told you exactly where Michigan State would be. Here, listen, I'll play this cut for you. This is from last Saturday's show. Listen, I told you. So for me, first college football playoff ranking, Michigan State's number 3. Bingo, bango, bongo. And now look, here's the deal. Now it gets a little more complicated. Gets a little more convoluted. Now there's another layer that you got to look at here if you're the Spartans. And so, unfortunately, yesterday, the secondary was a problem. And I don't know how with just a few games left on the slate that gets fixed this year. But now you're coming up to some good teams, and now you got to figure out a way to get through it. You got to figure out a way to put a Band-Aid on it until you really get a handle on this. And look, this is no indictment on Mel Tucker. This is no indictment on that program whatsoever. I mean, again, the over-under for wins this season for the Spartans was 4.5 in Vegas. So they are on the fast track. But when you're on the fast track, sometimes you overlook a couple of things, and the secondary is just the issue right now. The other problem for the Spartans yesterday, penalties. They were only flagged 6 times, but the penalties came at crucial times. That chop block on Kevin Jarvis early on, brutal. Then you got a freshman kicker in there because Matt Conklin is out. Missed the 43-yard field goal. Brutal. Justin White gets called for an illegal motion on a punt. No good. Back-to-back 15-yard penalties in the second half against Chester Kimbrough and Simon Barrow, who was ejected for charting. Can't have it. And those 2 calls in particular in the second half led specifically to the Boilermakers going and retaking the lead after Michigan State tied the game. Michigan State they were always playing from behind. And the problem for yesterday was coming off of that high at Michigan, coming off of that incredible win. Yesterday, it's not even like the Spartans necessarily beat themselves. They just weren't the better team yesterday. And I think if that game gets played 10 times, Michigan State's going to win that game 9 times. But yesterday, they just weren't the better team. And in an era of college football where your margin of that little sliver of being able to win games, being able to build that resume, stack up those wins in what inevitably would help you get to Indy, those margins are so slim. They're so razor thin. And with the teeth of the schedule coming up, that was a tough blow for the Spartans. But the good news, if you're a member of Michigan State Nation, a dog, as they call them in East Lansing, you do control your own everything is in front of you. Because even if Michigan were to go win out, which, let's be honest, ain't gonna happen. But if Michigan goes and wins out, and Michigan State goes and wins out, they look to the tiebreaker. And Michigan State's got it. Look, are either of these teams beating Ohio State? I don't think so. I think Ohio State's still the cream of the crop. But Michigan State still has that in front of them. And that's good news for the Spartans. As perhaps as rough of a day it was to watch that game, and it was rough, you still have hope. There's still that possibility out there. All right, coming up next, I want to talk about Michigan. And we're going to talk to Angelique Shangalis over at the Detroit News. Lots of injury problems for Michigan yesterday, especially in the backfield, which is their bread and butter. Hassan Haskins had to carry the load yesterday. Did it pretty well. Blake Corum goes out injured early in that game. Didn't have Donovan Edwards. And in a game where Michigan, I was expecting them to go out and lay a thumping on Indiana, they kind of walked through it. We'll talk about that coming up next here on SportsWrap.
21 and older and present in Michigan. First online real money wager only. Refund issued as non-withdrawable site credit that expires in 14 days. Restrictions apply. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Gambling problems? Call 1-800-270-7117 for confidential help.
Hey folks, four-time Stanley Cup champion Darren McCarty here. I got to tell you, I've been in lots of fights in my life, and I'm not used to losing them. After I left the NHL, I found myself fighting constant back pain for years, and it was a fight I definitely wasn't winning. That is, until I found pain-free life centers in Troy. Man, I wish I'd found him sooner. After my first treatment, the difference was like night and day. Yeah, first treatment. I wasn't waking up in pain anymore. I was more productive. I've been playing golf like a madman, because golf's hockey on grass and you get to... Anyways, I digress. Folks, if you have constant pain, give them a call. They gave me a free consultation, initial treatment right away. I could feel the difference. With the help of Pain Free Life Centers, I beat the snot out of my pain, just like I did to that turtle clawed Lemieux. Knuckle up, folks. I want you to fight your way back into the game. Call Pain Free Life Centers at 248-879-1100 or visit painfreelifecenters.com today. That's 248-879-1100 or painfreelifecenters.com. Tell them D-Max sent you.
Paul W. here. Thanksgiving is around the corner, but not everyone in Metro Detroit is celebrating. Thousands of children, seniors, and families will struggle to put food on the table. WJR and the Chilani Family Foundation have launched Hunger Free in the D, a 3-week matching gift campaign to support the Capuchin Soup Kitchen and Gleaners Community Food Bank to provide 500,000 meals to struggling families during the holidays.
The Chilani Family Foundation started with my wife and I.
MSU will bounce back. I would anticipate that they would, honestly.
There's a lot of other people in Detroit that really don't know how to give.
Now, as we all prepare for Thanksgiving, let's make a difference
you got
less fortunate. This is Paul Van Oss. I'm the
here comes the schedule now, right? Like, here come the teams. You still got Penn State. You still got Ohio State. By the way, you've got
visit hungerfreeinthed.com.
You've got a Maryland team that can throw the football.
That's 855-315-3663. And help us to become hunger-free.
I think Michigan State will be just fine.
Did you know that you might be overpaying for your prescriptions? It's okay, because there's an easy, convenient solution. Check GoodRx. GoodRx lets you compare prices at different pharmacies and shows you where to get the lowest price. Here's Joe, a doctor and GoodRx customer.
I was able to look up some medicines that I was going to get, and it saved me a good amount of money.
GoodRx is helping millions of people, and it can help you too. For simple, smart savings, check GoodRx. GoodRx is not insurance. In 2020, GoodRx users saved an average of 79% off retail prices. Individual compensated for their time. Visit goodrx.com/radio to learn more.
This Veterans Day, Blinds.com salutes the heroes who served our nation, and we're expressing our gratitude by offering up to 45% off site-wide. Blinds.com makes it easy and affordable to upgrade your whole house, from blinds, shades, interior shutters, and more. Talk to a Blinds.com professional design consultant for free, whether you DIY or have us handle measuring and installation. Plus, with Blinds.com, you always get free shipping and a 100% satisfaction guarantee. Go to Blinds.com now through November 11th and save up to 45% off everything. Blinds.com. Rules and restrictions may apply.
Now back to more Sports Wrap. Presented by FanDuel. Download the FanDuel Sports app today. FanDuel, more ways to win. Here's Chris Renwick.
Our next guest had an interesting piece and a really interesting quote from defensive lineman Taylor Upshaw. After Michigan State, that Michigan State game last week, Michigan lost to Michigan State. Taylor Upshaw and a couple of the guys at Schembechler Hall and the players were going around saying somebody's got to pay. Someone's got to pay for this. So somebody's got it coming to them. And Angelique Jangalis over at the Detroit News wrote that piece. She was with us here on SportsWrap. And Angelique, I got to be honest. Yesterday, watching that game, it felt like Michigan was in command the whole time. But with that said, it kind of felt like they were sleepwalking through it.
It's funny you said that, because I was going to use that word in my story, because I felt like everybody was sleepwalking. And part of it, Chris, is I've had a lot of people message me and text me that complaining about the Fox coverage and the timeouts and the media timeouts. And every time there was an injury, there was another media. And I've got to tell you, I watched the crowd, and I think that really took the fans out of the game. There was like no flow, and I don't want to put it all on TV, because it wasn't a very interesting game, unless you really wanted to sit there and watch the medical tent, which is what I ended up doing a lot of last night. But it definitely felt like sleepwalking through it, and I think the fans did too.
Well, it's funny. So I do college football play-by-play for Siena Heights University down in Adrian, and there are a couple of teams that we play on our schedule every year this is NAIA football, so there are no TV timeouts. But there are a couple of, bigger time schools at that level that do have, TV contracts, and they do the games on TV. And so there are TV timeouts. And it is glaringly obvious when you're sitting there watching a football game and you're dealing with extended stoppages. It's very obvious to the people who are especially there at a packed Michigan stadium, and it's cold, and people are watching this game. Like, all right, Michigan's got it. We understand they're going to win this game. But these timeouts, they're excessive. And this is, I think this is a problem. It's specifically to Fox. They really jam-pack these broadcasts. But look, you said you spent a lot of time watching the injury tent. There were a lot of guys going in there last night. Of course, Blake Corum being one of the top dogs and going in.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, it really, I was like, it was one of those games where I felt like, okay, I can take this series off and just watch the medical tent, because it was, as we described, just sort of a blah game. And that's not to take anything away from Michigan's defense, which opened with 4 straight 3-and-outs and five of the Indiana 6 possessions in the second half. But yeah, I mean, to your point, I mean, Blake Corum goes hopping off the field late in the first quarter, head straight to the medical tent, and then I spotted him in the second half in street clothes on the sideline with a boot on his right leg. So, I don't know what it is. I mean, you could sit there and speculate. Maybe it's a high ankle sprain, something like that. But I think maybe Harbaugh, I doubt he'll be specific about any of the injuries tomorrow, but he'll give a vague, like, yeah, I think he can go. No, I don't think so. So I think he'll offer that much. But yeah, I mean, it was a string of players. I mean, Jamon Green came off the corner. He looked like he was holding his shoulder, and he was sort of doubled over but then when he left to head to the locker room, he didn't seem to be in that similar pain. Again, hard to say, just what I was seeing. And then I see Andrell Anthony had come out, and he was sitting at the end of the bench, and then AJ Henning went in. And then when Henning came out, Andrell got up, and the two of them went with someone to the locker room and didn't return. So there was that. But, with Blake Corum going out, and you already have Donovan Edwards on the sideline, the freshman running back who missed his second straight game, Michigan suddenly got very thin at running back. And I don't think Hassan Haskins was complaining, but my goodness, something happens to him, then what? And I think that's a pretty precarious situation. And it'll be interesting to see, who gets back this week.
Yeah, I think it's a great point. I've really enjoyed watching the development of David Ojabo this year. It just seems like at every turn, every game this season, every big time moment, 55 is in the middle of it, and he has really improved week after week after week. And then, of course, you pair that with Aiden on the other side. That is a formidable pass rush this team has developed over the course of the season.
They really are. They're very disruptive, and really, it's been since the Wisconsin game that Ojabo has emerged. I mean, I had my binoculars watching that play on the strip sack, and our columnist Bob Winowski was sitting next to me, and I go, God, did you see that spin move he just made? I mean, it was really something to see Ojabo do that. And here's a guy who didn't start playing football till his junior year in high school, and he's from Scotland, came over to a boarding school in New Jersey. And I couldn't think of the state for a second. Excuse me, anybody from New Jersey, but he was a soccer athlete, a basketball athlete. He's just a freak athlete. So I think you're seeing what a few more years of football has developed here, and he's just getting better and better.
Of course, this thing gets difficult now as you head down the stretch. Penn State, at Maryland, and then of course at home for Ohio State. This Penn State team has taken a slide over the last couple of weeks. Obviously, back-to-back losses, that heartbreaker against Illinois, but and then last week against Ohio State, which who blames them? But going to Happy Valley, it's a noon game, thank God. But that is always a tough place to play, and Penn State's still a very good football team. So the teeth of the schedule, this thing really starts to clamp down now.
It really does, really, for Michigan State, and Ohio State. I mean, this is where the Big Ten East Division winner is going to come from these next 3 weeks. And you're right. I mean, Penn State's a very tough place to play. They're really lucky that this game's after the 10th week. So there was no threat of a night game unless Michigan would agree to it, and everybody knows that wouldn't happen. So, I think a noon game, I'm not sure if it works in there to benefit Michigan, but it certainly doesn't hurt. I mean, at least they're not playing at night, because that place is, it's electrifying like Nebraska was.
Yep.
And but Penn State has struggled. They haven't been the Penn State team I thought they would be. It was like will Sean Clifford be the 2019 version or the 2020? And it's been interesting to watch where he's kind of gone up and down, and the same for this team. So we talk about Michigan in the red zone. Penn State has had its issues too, scoring touchdowns in the red zone. But Beaver Stadium's a tough place to play. Great fans, and I mean, it should be. I saw an early. I guess just got an email with some of the betting spreads, and this is a pick 'em so far. So I don't know how that's going to change, but I think that's fair.
How do you think the players in the locker room have taken these last couple of days, really the last week, coming off that Michigan game where, I understand that there were some calls that didn't go their way. I'm not quite sure how the sack fumble touchdown doesn't stand, but that's where, beside the point. You blow a 16-point lead, halfway through the third quarter. That's a tough spot to be in. So what was your sense of kind of the morale of the team going into yesterday?
I thought it was really, really sound. I mean, they said all the right things and things I expected them to say, but there is something about this team that I really do think, maybe going through last year, the COVID year, and now there was one thing, I think it was David Ojabo earlier in the season said, that now they get to eat together. They get to do things together, and they're feeling that, what he called brotherhood. And I know a lot of teams feel that, so that's not unique to Michigan. But I thought, you mentioned the Taylor Upshaw quote. I mean, he said this team was really angry this week. And it wasn't about calls, which way they went or anything like that. It was the fact that they lost that game, and they knew that they had control of their destiny. And, maybe they didn't come out angry as I thought they would. But I don't think that they ever really thought Indiana was going to be a threat, and they needed to get this win and move on. And they want to maintain that kind of approach, that someone's got to pay approach. That's what Ojabo said after the game. And
it's an edge that they will be. Yeah, it's an edge that they're going to need, because, look, Indiana with their third-string freshman quarterback making his first start, you're right. That's probably not a time when somebody's got to pay, but it would be a good time to make Penn State pay. There's no doubt about it. Angelique Shangelis, thank you. Always appreciate it. Look forward to talking with you down the stretch.
Thank you. Okay, bye-bye.
All right, I'll tell you what. Coming up next, we'll take a break. Blake's going to get mad at me. I don't want Blake to get mad at me. Blake with us this afternoon, filling in for Jason Fissler. On the other side, we'll get you caught up on what's going on in the NFL. Obviously, Michigan State, big stories today. We'll get you caught up on what's going on in the NFL. We'll do a couple of questions Blake's prepared for us. And we'll get this thing going here on a Sunday evening. Sports Wrap. Chris Renwick right here on WJR. More coming next. Don't go anywhere.
As seen on Fox 2 News.
Have you been told you need spine surgery or just sick of living in pain? The Disc Institute has a proven, painless alternative. If your neck, back, or sciatic pain is due to a herniated, degenerative, or bulging disc, then you actually have two problems. One, your pain, and two, your bad disc. Drugs, therapies, epidurals, and new pain lasers are designed to only treat your pain, but they're not designed to treat your disc problem. And this is crucial because your bad disc is what's causing your pain in the first place. Without addressing your disc problem, your problem will get worse, which can ultimately lead to surgery. At the Disc Institute, we have a proven solution to solve both of your problems, your pain and the bad disc that's causing it, with our high-tech, non-invasive treatments. This is what can stop your pain without surgery. Call me at the Disc Institute at 586-416-DISC. That's 586-416-3472. We'll even review your MRI for no charge. Call 586-416-DISC. Reclaim your life.
Paul W. here. Thanksgiving is around the corner, but not everyone in Metro Detroit is celebrating. Thousands of children, seniors, and families will struggle to put food on the table. WJR and the Chilani Family Foundation have launched Hunger Free in the D, a 3-week matching gift campaign to support the Capuchin Soup Kitchen and Gleaners Community Food Bank to provide 500,000 meals to struggling families during the holidays.
The Chilani Family Foundation was started with my wife and I thinking about our children and making sure that they're engaged in the community. There's a lot of other people in Detroit that really don't know how to give. Where do I write my check to? And how do I make sure that when I do write the check, it's going to the right organization and it's getting spent right?
Hello, this is Tom Middlebrun from the National Electrical Contractors Association, or NECA. Here to make sure we are hunger free in the D. We need your help too.
Join us to help out. Visit hungerfreeinthed.com or call 855-315-FOOD. That's 855-315-3663. And help us to become hunger-free in the D.
You know your closet well, but what does it sound like? Yes, your closet. Does it whisper your taste? Does it scream your taste? The new Stitch Fix Freestyle, your personalized store, gets to know your unique style and fit. Its selection transforms to show you only the looks and trends you love. With a store that evolves alongside your taste, your closet will scream, so you, without actually screaming. Introducing Stitch Fix Freestyle for women and men, your personalized store. We're so you.
The weather is chilly, but it's not officially fall until you button up a soft and cozy flannel from Untuck It. They're perfect for keeping warm and in style this season. Untuck It shirts are designed to be worn untucked, so you'll look sharp and stay comfortable all day long. The wrinkle-free and performance shirts are great for work and the weekend. Just layer a super soft sweater on top for more dressed-up occasions. So update your closet this fall at untuckit.com or at 80-plus stores. Use code COZY for 20% off your first order. Untuck It shirts, designed to be worn untucked.
Now back to more Sports Wrap, presented by FanDuel. Download the FanDuel Sports app today. FanDuel, more ways to win. Here's Chris Renwick.
All right, I want to put a bow on this. And look, if you want to weigh in, 800-859-0957, 800-859-0WJR, number 40 caller text. Would love to have you on to talk about this. Also, if you want to pop on over to Facebook or our YouTube page, WJR YouTube page, we do the show live. So you can watch the show and interact. Joe Harper says MSU will bounce back. So I don't necessarily disagree, Joe, but last week was or yesterday was tough. Just to put a bow on this conversation about Michigan State, in the AP poll that was released today, Michigan and Michigan State. Michigan State dropped 3 spots. They are down to number 8 in the AP poll. Michigan stayed steady. They continue to be at number 9. So Michigan State at number 8, Michigan State at number 9. And I told you last week, and look, Blake, I will get your opinion on this too. Told you last week, Michigan State was going to be number 3 in the first college football playoff ranking. They were. This week, it's a little more difficult, right? It's a little more difficult because you look at the top 2 aren't going to change. Georgia will be number 1. Alabama will be number 2. You look at how it played out last week. Michigan State, Oregon, Ohio State, Cincinnati, Michigan, Oklahoma, Wake Forest, and Notre Dame to round out the top 10. Georgia and Alabama will hold pat. Michigan State gets bumped. Oregon and Ohio State move up. Okay, so your top 4 will be Georgia, Alabama, Oregon, and Ohio State. Book it. Now, after that, it gets interesting because I think Cincinnati moves up to number 5, and now you got to figure out what to do with Michigan State because beating Michigan, good. Losing to Purdue, an unranked team on the road, bad. And so now the committee has to weigh with Michigan State. Was this a blip? Was this something that, how is this going to be viewed by the committee? Because I think a loss against an unranked Purdue team on the road will hurt Michigan State more than a win against Michigan at home. So for me, with Cincinnati moving up to number 5, I could very well see Michigan moving up to 6 and perhaps Michigan State somewhere in that 7, 8, 9 window. Blake, where are you at on this? Do you think that too? Because I understand Michigan State, Michigan, the Spartans have the advantage over Michigan because they've got the tiebreaker in the win. But in the college football playoff poll, it's a little different. It's not like the AP poll, or it's not like, a ranking system in the Big Ten East. It's a little more complicated than that. So I think the committee has to look at how good is that win versus Michigan.
Yeah.
Obviously, they view Michigan highly if they're at number 7 in week 1 of the playoff rankings. Or how damaging is this Purdue loss going to be for them?
I think that the committee, though, has shown that head-to-head is very important, with Oregon being ranked ahead of Ohio State in the first poll. So yes. I still think that MSU will be ranked higher than Michigan. I think MSU will end up like at 6.
6, yep.
And then Michigan stays at 7. That's what I think will happen. I'm interested to see what happens with Oklahoma, because everyone in front of them obviously either lost or didn't play well, besides
Correct.
Georgia. So I'm interested to see, could we see Oklahoma like jump up ahead of, even Cincinnati? It'll be very interesting.
Well, that Cincinnati game was crazy yesterday. Did you happen to see any of that?
Yeah, I had it on one of the TVs.
So Cincinnati, they are still undefeated. They beat Tulsa yesterday. Tulsa had the ball at the Cincinnati 2-yard line with $1:14 left in the fourth quarter, down by 8. They turned the ball over on downs. Next play, Desmond Ridder fumbled the football on a victory formation kneel down. Ball never got to him. They fumbled the football. Tulsa recovers it at the 3-yard line. And it took Cincinnati in a goal line stand with seconds left on the clock. Tulsa ran it 4 times up the middle, and they never cashed in. Cincinnati stays undefeated. I have never seen a series like that where you're going from goal line stand to potentially, save the game, or at least, stop the team from tying it. It would take a touchdown into a 2-point conversion. So they make the goal line stop, then they fumble it, and then another goal line stop to win the game. That was really an incredible, I don't care who you're playing, that was really an incredible series by Cincinnati on that defense. It was really remarkable. So you got to give the Bearcats a lot of credit. With that being said, I still don't think that this slate of games that they've played, the schedule that they played, to me, I understand Cincinnati's upset. I understand the conference commissioner's upset. I get it. But to me, it's not there. It's unless something catastrophic goes down with these teams up top, I just don't see how Cincinnati's going to really get into the mix. But they're clawing their way in. They're going to be number 5 this week. So it'll be interesting to see. All right, I want to get you caught up on some of the action around the NFL tonight. Because, of course, the big news this week was Green Bay, Aaron Rodgers. He's out because of COVID. Turns out he wasn't vaccinated. They trail the Chiefs right now 13-0 with just under 5 minutes to go in the third quarter. That's obviously a game. This is, could be viewed as Jordan Love litmus test. Like, is this guy for real? And the Chiefs aren't very good this year. So this is an opportunity for them to show that this guy's it. And I don't know that I don't know if it's his time yet. There were obviously reports in the preseason about whether or not he's even ready. So maybe it's not as much of a litmus test as I'd like to think it is, but Packers trail the Chiefs 13-0 with the 3.5 to go in the third quarter. Blake, I know you've got some questions lined up. Let's get to it because I want to try to fire through some of these.
There was one thing I wanted to bring up that you brought up with Angelique about Fox. The other thing that drives me crazy about the Fox broadcasts, they don't show any scores from around the country. I don't know if you've noticed that. But during the entire game, the MSU Michigan game last week, and then this week during the Indiana game, there's just no scores from around the country. So you don't it's the only game on. And I think that adds into the whole commercial thing because they're not breaking it up with any scores.
No, there is no hey, let's go back to the studio for an update. There's none of that going on. No, there's none of that going on. But these the Fox broadcast, look, and I love Gus Johnson. For me, I just love his vibe. I dig it. Not everybody does, and I understand. But those Gus Johnson games, they're okay for me. I can get through them. But last night, it's very obvious when you're just constantly going to commercial. And look, again, you got to pay the bills. I understand. But my goodness, there has to be a line drawn. I don't know. But the problem is who's the arbiter of this? You know what I mean? Is the NCAA going to step in and say, Fox, you got to stop playing so many commercials? This is the Wild West here. Fox is able to, ESPN, I'm sure, could do the same thing if they wanted. But, geez, I mean, I don't know who is the person that's supposed to oversee all of this. You got to reel it in. You just have to.
Yeah.
Because it's obnoxious. It really is. And it does. And those people last night at the game, I was reading some tweets and somebody was like, oh, here comes another commercial break. And people are we just want to go home. We just, it's cold. It's not, it's dark. We're up. We're not going to lose it. Can we just go home, please? Why are we playing these commercials? I don't know how long that broadcast was. But I recorded the game and started watching it a little late, but I recorded the game and I always, this is a must for any sports watching. You always got to put the extra, tail end, the extra 30 minutes on at the end.
Mm-hmm.
So I put the extra 30-minute recording on and it still missed. I still didn't even see the end of the game. It was crazy. It was crazy. So yeah, when you're watching a Fox broadcast, buckle up because it's a haul.
Well, they've moved the midday kick from 3:30 to 4. They've done it themselves. They know what they're doing.
Oh yeah. No, it's not a mistake. A couple other scores to get you caught up on. Under 2 to go in Philly. Eagles hosting the Chargers. That's all tied up at 24. The Chargers are in Philly territory. They're at about the 32-yard line. So looks like the Chargers are at least going to have an opportunity here to win this one in regulation. Chiefs on top of the Packers, 13-0 with, it looks like they're just about to start the fourth quarter. Cardinals on top of the 49ers, 31-14. An OBJ-less Browns team all over the Bengals today, 41-16. Broncos over the Cowboys, 30-16. Dolphins beat the Texans 17-9. Falcons beat the Saints 27-25. Giants on top of the Raiders 23-16. Patriots beat the Panthers 24-6. I'll tell you what, I don't know what it has been this year, why it has been, but there are teams literally being blown out of the water this year in the NFL. That is not something historically that you've seen from the National Football League, where teams are literally blowing other teams out, right? The average margin of wins in the NFL over the course of a number of years was 3 points. The Browns beat the Bengals today with identical records, 41-16. In the NFL, that is a drubbing. A drubbing. I mean, that's crazy. I mean, look, Cardinals on top of the 49ers, 31-14. It's huge. Broncos on top of the Cowboys, 30-16. Blake, do you remember seeing, score differentials like this? I just don't remember this.
No, it's crazy. And one of the things I was going to bring up, and the Bengals, that score, 2 weeks ago, they beat the Ravens. Bengals don't make any sense at all.
No, they make no sense.
They lose to the Jets, and then they get blown out by Cleveland. They went from first place to last place in their division in 2 weeks.
2 weeks.
Crazy. And then the Broncos, they don't make any sense either.
No. The Broncos are really a head scratcher for me. Like, they were one of the hottest teams to start the NFL. Everybody was kind of like, nobody saw this coming from the Broncos. And today, Drew Luck's out, and they still blast the Cowboys 30-16 on the road in Dallas. Like, that's impressive. But yeah, I just don't remember. I just don't remember seeing these kind. Who are the Colts to put up a 45 spot on Thursday Night Football? I mean, I get you're playing the Jets, but these numbers are astronomical. I mean, really, it's crazy. It's not something that we've historically seen in the NFL. All right, I got to take a quick break. Coming up on the other side, we'll talk to our friend Sean Belegian. We've got his show with Bill Keenis coming up at 7 o'clock. Obviously not something you're going to want to miss. So stay tuned. Chris Renwick here on SportsWrap. More next here on WJR. Don't go anywhere.
Attention, fellow baby boomers. Guy Gordon here, speaking to you today on behalf of my longtime friends at Senior Health Medicare. I trust my expert friends so much, they recently assisted my parents. WJR will continue to inform our listeners 65 and up on the continual adjustments to Medicare. Time is running out for you to get informed now so you can make the right open enrollment choices that are so critical to you. You'll learn, what do I need to do before the end of the annual election period? What are the pitfalls in Medicare coverage? Learn all of the Medicare myths and truths with WJR and Senior Health Medicare. Thousands of WJR listeners have already received savings by just taking the time to speak with Senior Health Medicare. Your review only takes minutes for them to assist you like they assisted my family. Let Senior Health Medicare become your local experts. Visit seniorhealthmedicare.com today for your no-obligation review. Call 248-230-8595. That's 248-230-8595.
I'm Jeff Sloan, founder and CEO of StartupNation.com and host of WJR's Business Beat, featuring stories from the entrepreneurial tech and startup communities. Tune in weekdays at 7:11 a.m. during the Paul W. Smith Show right here on WJR. Dell Technologies Black Friday sneak peek is here. Save over 45% off as a Startup Nation member by calling 1-800-757-8442 or visit Dell.com/Startup Nation November 1st through the 14th.
Yo, what is up, ladies and gentlemen? This is Sir Mix and Match a Lot coming to you live from Hungry Howie's, where I'm talking famous flavor and mixing and matching any two items on the Hungry Howie's Mix and Match menu for $5.99 each. I'm talking a medium one-topping pizza, Howie bread, a Pepsi 4-pack, a regular oven-baked sub, a regular salad, a Howie cookie, and wings. Any two for $5.99 each.
Okay, can I just order my food, please?
Oh, sure.
Great. I'll have...
Sorry.
Hungry?
Howie's!
Sean Belegian and Bill Keenis present the highlights, happenings, and history of American football, covering everything from high school ball, the NCAA, and the NFL. Join us for the Gridiron Wrap, Sunday nights at 7 on WJR.
Now back to more Sports Wrap, presented by FanDuel. Download the FanDuel Sports app today. FanDuel, more ways to win. Here's Chris Renwick.
All right, welcome back. We'll get you caught up on a couple of other things in the NFL. One of the interesting things about this season really has been the Chiefs. I mean, it obviously they've got a ton of talent, and for whatever reason, they haven't been able to keep this thing together. Like, it's been, they're 4-4. That I just. You try to tell me in the middle of, in the off season that that Kansas City is going to be 500 heading into week 8. I would have called you crazy. I would have called Sean Belegian. Did you see that coming? This whole Kansas City thing?
No.
4-4 on the. I did. I would have told you were nuts if you told me that preseason.
Yeah, and you know what? They're getting a lot of heat in Kansas City, and I don't think the players are reacting too well to it. I mean, look, there are big.
They don't know how to react to it.
Yeah, look, there are big expectations, especially about that offense. Chris, I don't know if you've had this on in the background. They just don't look right. There's no other way to say that. And this was one of those games that I think a lot of people were looking at on the schedule, and obviously the Aaron Rodgers drama changed it from Green Bay. this game's been awful. I mean, there's
Yeah.
no other way to say it. It's not been a good game today.
No, it's been a snoozer. And again, through three quarters, the Chiefs could only muster up 13 points against a Packers team where, again, with that offense, it's remarkable. So I agree. They just don't look right. You know, the other part we were just talking a couple of minutes ago is it feels like throughout the last, I don't know, decade, there's the NFL. Yes, there are teams that are just far and away better. You know, the last few years, the Chiefs have just been far and away better than anybody else. But the amount of like blowout games we're seeing this year is crazy. I just don't remember seeing games like this Browns-Bengals game 41-16. Are you kidding me? What is this?
You know what? And the crazy thing about it, yet at the same time, I think the NFL for so many years was so desirous of having parity. They've got it now. And every week there are the surprises, you know, like what Jacksonville did to Buffalo today. Denver jumping out to a 30-0 lead on Dallas and
right.
You know, things like that. So it is kind of crazy how the league is today. I mean, look, we're kind of sounding like the generations that came before us. I mean, right? We're turning into our fathers right now, aren't we? Yes. Football was better when I was a kid.
I'm not even saying it was better. It's just I just can't believe this is happening. That's all.
No, I agree with you. I agree with you. Yeah, all jokes aside, I agree. I mean, you know, and then you see what the Cardinals are doing today, right? And you think to yourself, you know, how did they lose that game to the Packers last week? Now the Packers aren't, you know, exactly a slouch or anything like that, but you know, the Cardinals had really been sailing, and it's anybody's game right now. There's no doubt about it, and that's exactly the way that the National Football League wants it.
What do you make of this Von Miller trade? Von Miller going to the Rams. I don't know what the aversion is for Los Angeles and their draft picks. Like, they just don't want them. They don't like anything about them. They want nothing to do with them. And so they traded for Von Miller this week, couple of second-round draft picks. I get it. Like, they need a little bit of extra pass rush juice on the outside. Von Miller will give that to you. But they are the obvious thing here is that they are making a push right now for this season.
Yeah, it's all the eggs in the basket. You know, throw out all of those old cliches. And I mean, you know the routine. It's you know, if it doesn't happen this year, is it like they're going to go away? Well, no, but I think they realize that this might be their best shot at it. And look, you know, could you call them the favorite right now? I think you could. I think you could call them the favorite right now. I mean, no disrespect to the Cardinals, obviously, or the Packers with a healthy Aaron Rodgers. But, you know, for my money, Chris, I'd take the Rams.
Yeah, I agree. You know, the interesting thing coming up Tuesday night, College Football Playoff Committee will release their second poll. And it's going to be interesting to see because we talked about it a little bit earlier, and I want to get your thoughts on where you think, because now the Spartans are in a bit of a conundrum here, right? Like, obviously the win against Michigan, really big, top 10 win, crazy environment, come from behind win. That's a big deal. And I told everybody last week, Michigan State's going to be number 3. There's no doubt about it. I felt really strongly about that. Now it's confusing because now the committee has to weigh, and understanding that the head-to-head matchup is very important to the committee. We've seen in recent history, but that win against Michigan is really good. The loss against Purdue is really rough. So how they continue to slot Michigan State within that top 10 is going to be really interesting to see. It's one of the first conundrums, I think, of the year.
Well, you know what's also interesting about this? I think Spartan fans will remember. I mean, just go back to 2015. All was lost when they ended up losing that crazy game to Nebraska. They went from number 7 in the college football playoff ranking all the way down to 13. And I think you know how well that played out. They eventually were able to pass Iowa by beating them in the Big Ten championship. Now, do not misconstrue. I'm not saying that the Spartans are going to do that again. This is a repeat of 2015. As a matter of fact, you know, I don't see them getting past Ohio State. We'll wait and see how that plays out. But the reason why I bring that up, Chris, is, to me, one man's opinion, This college football playoff ranking this time of year is nothing more than a made-for-television event. There are so many things that can happen. And so when I hear fans bickering and going back and forth on stuff like this, it makes me kind of chuckle, because there is a way at this juncture for a lot of teams, even ranked as low as 13, to matriculate their way back into that top 4 before the end of the season. I mean, that's one thing that we've seen time and time again. And I think people in this state, got an up-close look at that. I mean, it was over when they lost that game to Nebraska. And obviously they were able to go on, and they got the huge win down at Ohio State, and then knocked off Penn State the last game of the year and beat Iowa. Who could forget that drive in the Big Ten championship? But the whole point of me saying that, Chris, is there is so much football that is left to be played right now. And it's funny to me as well, people that are kind of, what's the best way to say it? Giving a hassle to the committee about Cincinnati right now. Cincinnati can play their way in just yet. Where they make this a no-brain conversation. To me, we're not ready to have that conversation yet. Yes, they're sitting there at 6, but they can certainly play themselves in. You have to hope for a loss. Maybe Georgia, Alabama negate each other. Who knows? Maybe one of them, is able to get punched out as it is. Ohio State, same thing. Oregon, same thing. So, when all is said and done in a few weeks, if Cincinnati's 12-0 and you have a slew of teams with 1 losses, good luck to the committee explaining that one away.
I know. Look, I am somebody who will argue against Cincinnati getting in. To me, the schedule just isn't there. I mean, the win against Notre Dame is good. It's a great win. Outside of that, it took you 2 goal line stands to beat Tulsa. Like, that's, which, by the way, I've never seen anything like that before. That was a first for something like that.
Yeah, you know what's interesting, though, Chris? This is where it gets intriguing. Well, what if there is, and this happens very rarely, and no offense to you, I have this conversation with Michigan fans all the time. Win the conference and you don't have anything to worry about. Will other teams get in? Well, it doesn't happen that often, right? What if there's a 1-loss team? Then what's the committee going to do? If there's a 1-loss team in there, that didn't win their conference. They're the ones that put the premium on winning the conference. So a lot of intriguing things could happen.
Yeah, this is coming down the stretch here with 3 games left. It's going to be a lot of fun. Gridiron Wrap coming up. What do you guys got coming up? Anything in particular?
Well, we're going to talk about what exactly happens during a bye week. An interesting ruling on a game that Bill Keenis was working on today that I'm intrigued to hear about myself. What's going on in the high school ranks? Lots of stuff, Chris.
All right, Gridiron Wrap coming up next. That'll do it for Sports Wrap tonight. Have yourself a wonderful week. We'll catch you next week.
What's all the buzz about nasal irrigation and navage? Hey. And should I try it?
Thank you, everybody.
Here's the science.
We'll catch you next week. Joe, Jan, Steve, we'll talk to you. Have a good one.